So trial balance, errors, and suspense account. So first of all, I'm going to give you just a brief introduction of what actually a trial balance is. We'll study about this, and after that, we will be starting with the suspense account and all the details regarding the errors that we have. Okay. So first of all, it's written over here. Let's read it from here. At the end of the year, once all ledger accounts have been balanced off, the closing balances are summarized on a long list of balances. This is referred to as trial balance. I'll show you an example of trial balance as well in just a minute after we study, after we read all these paragraphs. So it's a very simple. What happens is that after all the T accounts are made, after all the double entries are made, so the balances, the closing balances of the T account are taken, and basically a list is formed, and that list contains two columns, debit and credit. So it's kind of like a summary of all the ledger account balances that we have, and it's like this. Let me show you a small sketch over here. So it's like two columns, debit and credit. All the account heads are written over here. Let's say sales, then we have let's say expenses, all kind of expenses, admin cost, advertising cost, everything, right? So all of these have their balances on their respective sides wherever they are written, right? Like sales will have on credit side, all the expenses, assets, and purchases, they are on debit side, right? So the motive is that the totals, both the debit and credit columns, the totals should show equal balance at every time, because if it shows equal balance, then a trial balance is made correct. If there is some difference that we are going to study in just a while, the errors, that is the most part of this chapter, so that contains an investigation. So obviously an investigation needs to happen in the company. Okay. Now all the closing debit balances are summarized in one column and the closing credit balances in another. So basically it's telling about that all closing balances are taken. So the T accounts that we're making, the closing balance that we take, it can come on any side for liability or asset. So this balance we extract and bring it to this trial balance. So given the nature of the double entry system described in this text, the total of both columns should agree. That's right. If not, the discrepancy must be investigated and corrected. Okay. This is another control in the accounting system to ensure that the balances reported in financial statements are accurate. The layout of trial balance is illustrated below. We'll see in just a minute. So trial balance, basically, if I talk about the purpose of this, so we can simply, in short form, we can call it that it is a error checking device. In financial accounting, it is a error checking device. Let me write over here as well. So this basically checks error. So error checking device, because if there is any error on like debit side or credit side, then it's easily told by the trial balance. But there are some advantages and disadvantages as well that we will also discuss in
Please just wait one moment, sorry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, should we start?
Uh,
Okay, no issue. Let's take one more minute because we have to finish this
okay,
chapter as well.
go.
And
Let's
after,
go. Yeah, done
okay,
it.
then. Okay, great, great.
Sorry,
No
just
problem.
this Monday is crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Mondays and Fridays are very busy. That's right. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's discuss this as well. That I was telling you that trial balance basically has a technique which is called that trial balance is basically an error checking device that is used in the company. Now, this is actually not like a proper financial statement because it's just for the internal use of the company. So trial balance
Yeah.
is something looks something like this. You can see that there are two columns over here, debits and credits. Now, all the balances in the company, like every head, every accounting head is written over here and on the respective sides. Obviously, revenue, it is a credit item, purchase, admin expenses, all of these items, the assets, cash, trade receivables, all of these are debit and all of the other things are credit. So these are written respectively on the debit side as well and the credit side as well. And these two should always be total. These two should always be equal. If they are not equal, then there is some kind of mistake or error that we need to investigate fully. Now, this is basically the process of making. This is talking
Looks
about.
like the how do you call it? You know, the group one, the group two, like
Yeah,
everything is there.
yeah, exactly. All the basically
Okay.
all the accounts, all the T account closing balances that I just told you, that all the T account
Yeah.
closing balances extracted in the trial balance, and I don't think this will be tested like make a full trial balance in the exam. Only the errors over here will be tested. The errors are the main. The errors in the suspense account are the main topic in in this chapter, because trial balance,
Okay.
it's just giving the knowledge, the theoretical knowledge, what it actually is, but it's very difficult. It's very rare situation that you have to make it, because obviously it's MCQs, so you cannot make it in the MCQs. So as you can see over
Okay.
here, that in the financial statements, this is the step-by-step approach we discussed in some other class as well before when we started this syllabus. So transaction recorded in ledger accounts are basically the T accounts. So even before this, what happens is that double entries is made, right? So after the double entry, the T accounts are made, right? The T accounts are then balanced off, and then after the balancing off, they are closed off, and from these balances, then the trial balance is extracted. So the making of T account is basically checked by the making of trial balance. That is the accuracy. Is there any mistakes? Is the accuracy right or wrong? Then year-end adjustments are also made after the trial balance has been closed, because there are some things that we just need to do a final touch on them, like inventory and other kind of adjustments. You'll study them in the further exams as well. And lastly, we are using trial balance used to prepare financial statements. So using the trial balance, we prepare the financial statements. And regarding the financial statements, we have to start the consolidation in the next class. So I'll guide you all the formats of the financial statements as well. Okay. Now,
Okay.
examination questions may draw on any particular stage. So obviously, every kind of stage, if you look at it technically, every kind of stage has a separate chapter. Like T account had separate chapter, double entries we studied in detail very much in the start. Trial balance where we are going to study right now, right? Okay, so this is just a relevant example because obviously you won't be asked to make a trial balance over here. I'll jump straight onto the errors, which is the most important thing and the time taking thing as well.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is that there are two types of errors in the trial balance world. There are two types of errors. Number one is the type of errors which do affect the trial balance. Which do affect means that the trial balance is actually imbalanced because of that, right? And second type is the errors which do not affect the trial balance. By do not affect, I mean that trial balance, even if there is an error, trial balance would still show same and equal balance, right? And that means it will not show any kind of discrepancy or mistake, right? So these are the two things we are going to start right now. First of all, we have the first type, which is the errors where trial balance still balances. So in other words, if I write over here that debits, in this case, debits will always be equal to the credits. Like in other words, trial balance will be completely blind over here. It will not know what is happening. It will just show all is right, all is well. We can move ahead. But actually, there will be some differences that actually occur. There will be some errors. Okay. Now, first kind of the error over here is error of omission. Okay, we need to know, we need to remember that over here trial balance is still balancing. Okay, so what happens in error of omission is, omission word basically means to forget something, right? So over here it's written as well, a transaction has been completely omitted, that means forgotten from the accounting records. So this means that we have not even signaled the accounting records that this transaction is happening, right? So we have not made any entry, we have not even opened the accounting records for that specific transaction. So for example, a cash sale of $100 was not recorded, so neither the entry was for credit sales, neither the entry was for debit cash. Okay, so the trial balance would not know in this case that this entry actually happened or not. So if it did not know, obviously it will show all is well, everything is fine, you can move ahead, the debits are equal to credit, but in actual there is an error over here. Okay, so secondly, the second and third I'm going to explain in very easy manner, in a very easy to understand manner, and that I'm just going to do just a second, because these two errors are very related to each other. One second. Okay, so first of all we have error of commission, and secondly we have over here error of principal. So these both are very simple. Let me explain you what these actually mean. So in error of commission, I'm going to write two words over here in both of these. So the first word over here that I'm going to write is account name, and then account nature. Over here as well, account name and then account nature. Okay, so first of all, in error of commission, we just need to understand there's actually no definition for this. We just need to understand these both errors regarding with the help of these two words, the account name and account nature. So always remember that in error of commission, the account name is wrong in every case. Okay, and the account nature, but the account nature over here is same. Okay, so the account name is wrong, account nature is same. Let me give you a practical example. Let's discuss 2 or 3 examples. Let's say that I actually had to record motor expenses. Motor expenses, for example, I just did some work on my car, or any kind of accidental repair or anything that is kind of motor expenses. Okay, so but accidentally my accountant, basically what he did is that he entered this expense in another kind of account, and that account was known as telephone expense. Okay, so you can see that these both accounts, although the account name is wrong over here, you can see this is motor expense and this is the telephone expense, but you can see the nature over here is same of both accounts. This is also an expense account, this is also an expense account. However, the account names are wrong. That means treatment will be same, right? So what will happen is that my accountant will have done debit telephone expense and credit cash instead of debit motor expense credit cash. But you see, the debit and credit are the same, the treatment are the same, because both account have same nature. By same nature, this means that expense in both accounts will have the same nature. Cash is deducted from both and expense is also increased, but the wrong name has been debited, right? So that means trial balance will not pick up this mistake, because trial balance will think that debit and credit are equal. There is no mistake over here. Okay, so this is error of commission, in which trial balance will know nothing. It will just say debits are equal to credit, but in actual, yes, there will be a mistake that is existing over here. Okay, right? Now in error of principle, what happens is, let's see, just a second, 1 second. Okay, so in error of principle, remember that in both kind of these errors, the account name is wrong. Undoubtedly it is wrong, because it cannot be same. Okay, but over here the nature is also wrong. In error of commission, we saw that account nature is same over here, but in error of principle, both things are wrong over here. Okay, now let me give you an example, just a simple example. Let's say I bought a new computer, right? And let's say it was for $1,000, right? Now $1,000 is a big amount, so obviously I will have to capitalize it. That means this is my non-current asset, right? This will be part of the non-current assets in the financial statements, right? But actually what happened is that instead of debiting this computer, my accountant accidentally did debit rent expense. Okay, now you know that expense and assets, this is asset. So expense and assets both have the same treatment. They are debit for increase, credit for decrease, right? So instead of doing debit computer, credit cash, my accountant actually did debit rent expense, right? And credit cash. So you see the same thing happened over here, that debit and credit is being same, but what happened is that account nature is wrong. Over here we actually needed to record an asset, but accidentally we have recorded it as expense, right? So expense and assets, although the treatment is same, but the nature is wrong, right? There are different kind of natures like assets, expenses, liabilities, sales, purchases. All of these are different kind of nature, right? So what happened is that this is a kind of error of principle in which I've recorded computer, which is actually a non-current asset, as an expense. So account name and nature, both things are wrong over here. Let's
Yeah, they
see
are a
another
bit tricky,
example.
these two. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think, you know, they're a bit tricky when you do the exercises.
Yeah, exactly. But in the questions, I'll tell you a technique. It's a very simple technique, and from that you will easily, hopefully, be able to do the questions for the trial balance and errors. Because these errors questions are there are not much questions of these errors, like what is the name of this error. There may be one or two questions in the exam, but the main questions are for the suspense account. That is a bit tricky. That's right. Okay. Now let's see another example of error of principle. This was the first one. The second example would be, I actually needed to record sales, right? And you know that sales, when we record, they are credit, right? They're never debited. So actually, what my accountant did over here as well, he did one more mistake, and accidentally he wrote the sales as a liability. Let's say liability as a loan. He actually wrote it as a loan. Now you see that they both are credited. There is no issue. Liability is
Yeah.
also credit for increase, sale is also credit for increase, right? So the treatment will be exactly right. Debit will also be correct, credit will also be correct, but the account nature is wrong and account name is wrong over here. But the trial balance will be showing equal amounts. There is no problem in that. Okay, so for error of commission and principal, you can remember it easily by these two words over here. It's very easy to understand by this. Okay, now let's move further. You can see it's exactly the same thing written over here. Error of commission, transaction has been recorded in wrong
Yeah, I'm
account,
not going to
but
read that one because it's going
exactly.
to, you know, to confuse me even more.
Yeah. Exactly. That's right. Let's do the remaining three over here.
Yeah.
So the fourth one over here is compensating error. Now this is a very interesting kind of error. I'll straight away jump out to the example and explain you. So this is compensating error. Okay. So what happens in this is that actually, let's say that um, on 15th June, the accountant made one entry, which was basically cash sales. Let's say cash sales, debit cash, credit sales, and the amount for this was 1000, right? But actually on the credit side, my accountant did one mistake. He was in very hurry, right? He had to go somewhere, so that's why he just missed 10. He did credit sales by just 100, not with 1000, right? So you can see that debits and credits are not equal over here. Sales is 100 and cash is 1000. So that means how much
Yeah.
is there a difference over here? 900, right? There is a difference of 900 over here. So that means credit side will be showing 900 less amount over here. Now let's say on 15th October, some months after this, the accountant remember that, oh, I did this mistake over here, right? Then on 15th October, what he does is, over here is that, let's say he's recording something else. Let's say a telephone expense over here, and credit he's doing cash. Now the amount for this, let's say it's 500. The original amount is 500, right? Now what he does is that he says, oh, okay, I did 900 mistake over here. Let me correct it over here so that no one catches it. The trial balance is made just once a year, right? At the end of the year, most probably. So that's why he is basically compensating one error into the other entry. So what he does is that debit side is correct. There is no issue on this. He said, yes, I understated sales some months ago by 900, right? So what entry will he make over here? He'll make 1400, which is basically 900 plus 500. So 500 entry will be made over here, but he is deliberately increasing it with 900. The mistake he did some months ago in the credit sales, he wrote it 900 less amount. right? So this is
Yeah.
basically called compensating errors, that one error is compensating the other entry within 1 year. So trial balance obviously will not know what's happening over here. So it will, at the end of the year, it will show everything is correct over here. Okay. Now the next one is error of original entry. So what happens in this is that correct double entry has been made, but with the wrong amount. Let's say a cash sale of $76 has been recorded as 67, right? So what happens is that debit credits are also same over here. There is no issue. So we do entry like this, but what happens is that instead of 76, we write it as 67, right? The amount is wrong over here, but the treatment is same over here, right? The debits and credits are correct. So trial balance will also not know what's happening over here because the debits and credits will be equal. There will be no issue over here, right? Okay, let's discuss
Yes.
this last one. Reversal of entries. So correct amount has been posted to the correct accounts, but on the wrong side. So for example, a cash sale of $200 has been debited to sales and credited to bank. Okay, so what happens is that in actual, we needed to make this entry. We did cash sales of, let's say, $100. This is the correct entry. But actually, again, the accountant did mistake over here. What he did is that debit sales by 100 and credit cash by 100, right? So you can see the entries he has just reversed. He has just swapped the entries over here. So sales is debit, but originally it was credit, and cash is credit, originally it was debit. But the amounts are same, you can see. So that means again there will be no error over here. The debits and credits will be equal on this side, right? And it all depends that trial balance how it catches the mistake by detecting an unequal debit and credit amounts, right? If the debits and credits are equal, regardless of the error that has happened, trial balance will say, okay, move ahead, we are going correct, right? But if debits and credits are not equal, let's say if I made an error over here, debit cash, credit sales, over here it's 1000, over here it's 100, yes, then this will be uh, caught by the trial balance and this will be a mistake. And trial balance, obviously it will be showing 900 less than the debit side. Okay, now these steps I'm not focusing over here because I will tell a very simple technique, because actually if you follow these steps it will be very time consuming in the exam, right? Like I told you, a simple formula, a simple technique for the bank reconciliation, a simple technique for the control account, over here I'll be doing the same as well. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's jump on to the second type of the errors, which is the errors where trial balance does not balance. So actually over here, the trial balance is not equal, the debits is not equal to credit. That means trial balance catches the mistake over here. Okay. Now, first of all, what happens is single-sided entry. So single-sided entry, as the name tells you, it's very simple. We actually had to do this entry, this one, debit cash credit sales, but we just did debit cash. That's it. Or we just did credit sales, right? So one entry we did, the second we did not do. Either only debit, either only credit. So this is error of error single-sided entry. So that means one debit or one credit we made, the other entry we did not make. Okay. Now, debit and credit entries have been made, but at different values, obviously. So let's say debit cash. So same example as this one. It's already made, you see. Debit cash is with 1000, credit sale is with just 100. So there is a $900 difference on the credit side, right? So this is the meaning of second one. Now third one, two debit or two credit entries have been posted. So let's say we did debit cash and similarly debit sales, right? So you can see all of the entries are on debit, nothing is showing on credit over here. So the credit side will automatically be understated over here. It will be showing much less balance than the debit side. It will not be equal to debit. Okay. Now, an incorrect.
Sorry, but this one shouldn't like be always balanced because two debits and two credits.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening is that either you do two debits or you do two credits, right? So if you in either of these options, basically, if you're doing two debits, there is nothing on the credit side, right? Then the trial balance will not match. And if you're doing to
I thought
credit,
there was and not or to
yeah.
debit
So
and credit.
exactly, it's
Yeah,
or, yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
either you're doing two debit or two credit entries. So that means the other
Mm.
side will be empty on this side. Okay. An incorrect addition in any individual account, that is miscasting. So obviously, it's again similar to this single side entry. Like let's say we have done debit cash, credit sales, right? And it's saying over here an incorrect addition at any individual account. Miscasting basically means that one account we picked the whole amount, but the other account we missed something during the casting. Casting means the calculation. During the calculation, we might have excluded 1 0, right? So that means this is the explanation of this one. Okay.
Okay.
Now, opening balance has not been brought down. Yes, this can also be one factor. Like if we are making the T accounts, everything is written on the correct side. Everything is right. But the opening balance we forgot to write. So if there is no opening balance, obviously the closing will be wrong as well. And if the closing balance is wrong, then during the extraction, there will be some mistakes because we just studied that closing balance is taken in the trial balance always, right? And this point is also very similar. Extraction error. The balance in the trial balance is different from the balance in the relevant account. So let's say in the account it was 1000. During extracting basically means, let's say this was a trial balance. So we are extracting this balance from this T account. We are taking it. We are pulling this balance, right? So
Yeah.
during this extracting, we may missed 10 or we may added 10 accidentally. So this is called extraction error. In this case, one
So when
side,
there is closing balance and we are going to put that is going to be coming in opening balance and we make a mistake.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Okay. So during the extraction, this also happens, and these both points are very similar. If we have not write an opening balance, then this can also happen. So all of
Okay.
these factors, all of these errors were again relating to the trial balance with which it catches the mistake, in which debit is not equal to the credit. Okay, now it's explaining the next step. So you can see there is kind of a trial balance over here. It's just an example. So you can see the debits are equal to the credits over here. Okay, but let's say, just ignore these balances. Let's say if it was 10,000 over here and
Mhm.
9,500 over here. Let's say this was the entry. Then actually what will happen? Then there will be one word which we are going to study in just a minute. That is called suspense accounts. Okay, this is basically the next step after this, like the subsequent step. What happens next, right? So you can see that there is a clearly $500 difference on which side? On the credit side, right? And let's say that after finding this mistake for many months, many days, the accountant had to leave the other task and go to the basic bookkeeping and look at this investigation of the error, everything he found out, but he did not find the cause of the mistake, right? So what will this mean? That this $500 is never found in the accounts. So in this case, what we'll do is that you can see this is debit side, this is credit side, right? So what we'll do is that we'll create one more balance, 500, and write it as a suspense account. In this, let's write it over here. Let's ignore this. Let's write it over here, 500, and we will name it as suspense account. It's actually made over here as well. Yeah, you can see 150 is made because the total was not coming equal. So on whichever side there is a difference in the trial balance, and if we cannot find the cause of that mistake after many months, many days of investigation, then we have one rescue option, which is a suspense account. Right, now let's start studying something about the suspense account as well, because these errors were very short, these were very easy to understand. The main trick lies in this topic, which is this suspense account. Okay, now two or three things to note over here: that suspense account has its own T account, right? So for this is just for the clearing. This is not included in the financial statements. It's not a property account. It's just for the working. Like remember, we made a T account for disposal when we studied the chapter.
Yes.
Told you that disposal T account is not actually part of the double entry. It's just made for calculating profit or loss. So same is with the suspense account as well. It's just a temporary account for just managing the debits and credits, the mistakes that have happened over here. Okay. Now suspense account is an account in which debits or credits are held temporarily until sufficient information is available for them to be posted to the correct accounts. So until we don't get sufficient evidence, we start investigating, right? So till then, the balance remains in the suspense account. So suspense, again, the word is that everyone is surprised. We cannot find anything regarding that trial balance error that we just did, right? So that's why it's known as suspense account. So there are two main reasons why suspense account may be created. First of all, on extraction of a trial balance, the debits are not equal to the credits. So obviously the difference in this is then put to the suspense account. So whichever side the difference is coming, on that side we put a suspense account. Let's say over here, 500 difference was coming on the credit side, right? So let's say this is the suspense account. Now this 500 difference will be coming on this side, credit side. This will be opening balance on the credit side. Why? Because this 500 mistake, this undercasting was caused by on the credit side, right? So that's why we will write the opening balance on the credit side as well. Now, as we find more facts and figures and mistakes over the time, over the period, then we'll start correcting in this account. Okay, and all the information about the errors of the mistakes, that this was discovered, this was known, this was discovered, it will be given to you in the question every time. Okay, now secondly, when bookkeeper performing double entry is not sure where to post one side of an entry, there may be they may debit or credit a suspense account and leave the entry there until ultimate decision is clarified. So if they're unsure as well, number one purpose of this is that they actually don't know that where the mistake came from. So this is basically after you've done the mistake. But this is, you've heard of this word, it's basically called a proactive approach, right? So in proactive, what happens is that you act before doing the mistake. You don't regret after. This is basically regretting after doing the mistake, right? And this is basically being preventative, being precautious, right, before doing the mistake. So if the accountant is not sure where to post that, so without posting it, without making all the mess in the accounts, he just becomes proactive and makes a suspense account, so that after discussion with the seniors and everything, he may post it on the correct side when the correct evidence is found by him. Okay, so these were the two main reasons for the suspense account. Again, this is a very confusing approach, as you can see, that what the entry should have been, what we actually did, and what is the correcting entry. So again, this is a very difficult kind of steps. I'll again guide you when we'll go to the questions, and you'll find it yourself also easy, that it's all related to common sense. Like if he has done this mistake, where should actually it have been correct, right? So it all depends on common sense over here. There is nothing much to understand in this chapter, except from the just the trial balance errors name.
Okay.
Okay, this is also long example considering this all steps which are not required over here. Let's see what else over here we have.
I've seen it's just,
Yeah, just a little bit theory over here. So adjustment to profit, this is also part of financial statements. When we study that chapter, we'll automatically get what actually this means. And this is basically the explanation that that I'm just going to explain the questions as well, right? That what actually we did, what we did wrong. So this is basically further explanation for already the information I've given you, right? So you can read it if you want, but it's already the same information that we studied with the help of the examples over here. Okay. Now I'm just going to do a small thing over here. Let's make short notes of the suspense account as well. So there are 2 or 3 or 4 things to understand. First of all, I'll write the definition over here, suspense account. This will also be a recap, kind of a recap. So this is a temporary account made just to balance.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
You know that you gave to me also the BPP exam kit.
Yeah.
I, until now, I've just done the questions on the Kaplan one.
Don't worry. Actually, we'll have some extra classes, just 4 or 5 classes. I'll try to complete all the questions of BPP in that as well. So that's also included in this course, right? Okay. So first, when we are done, the first priority will be Kaplan kit.
am I doing well? You know, just doing the Kaplan questions.
Yeah, if you're completing the homework and everything, so you're doing well enough. That's fine over here.
Okay.
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 But for the BPP kit, it's just like an add-on if you want more practice. And some students also pass with just doing the Kaplan, but that's not our motive. We have to prepare fully, right? We have to do BPP as well and
Yeah,
Kaplan as well.
that's true.
But
Yeah.
as soon as we are out of questions from Kaplan, we'll definitely move to the BPP kit. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So temporary account made just to balance for the time being. Um and the balance is removed once sufficient evidence has been gathered. Okay, so now I'm going to write the features of this, that this is a temporary account. It has its own T account. Opening balance is started on the difference side, right? And these are basically the main features of the suspense account. Let's make an example over here so that you can remember this. This is debit side, this is credit side, and let's say these are sales of.
What does it mean? Opening balance is started on.
That I'm just going to explain in just 1 second.
Okay.
So these are sales. Then let's say the total assets. These are 800, and capital, let's say 500. Purchases 200, and expenses, let's say they are also 500. And one more thing, let's say they were admin costs, and these were of 200, right? So if we total this side, the credit side total is, you can see 1500 over here, and this side is 1050 and 17. Okay, so you can see that debit is 1700, credit side is 1500, right? So ideally we should have the suspense account balance on the credit side because it's 200 lower over here. So wherever
Yeah.
there is a lower balance, wait, let me make these balances a bit lower. So this was 1500 and this was 1700, right? So let's say the suspense account we have to make just for temporary balancing till we don't get more sufficient evidence. We just put the 200, the difference over here, so that just for the time being this becomes 1700, right? Now when the suspense account will be made over here, this is suspense account. So the opening balance will be started on the credit side because you can see the difference was also made on credit side. So that means opening balance will be 200 over here, because this caused it to make a suspense account. If there was no suspense entry over here, then suspense T account will also not be made, right? So this was the meaning of that opening balance definition.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now let's see what else we have. Okay, so the chapter is finished. There was nothing much. You can see all of these things we studied. So the main thing over here was obviously the suspense account, the definition for that, and the types of errors over here. Okay, and this thing we'll study when we'll start the financial statements, because at that time we'll be much clear about this. Okay, now let's take a short break, let's say of just 4-5 minutes, right? And after that we'll start the questions from the Kaplan kit. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's continue. Let's start the Kaplan kit questions. Okay, so first let me tell you the range of the questions. First of all, the questions are from starting from 245 till 266. So in total, there are just 21 questions. We'll try to do half of them today, right? And remaining ones, then you can let me know if you're having any issue. So 245, let's start this first one. So after
Okay.
adjusting for the errors above, what is the balance on suspense account? So over here, I'll start to basically make the logical understanding that what actually we do in the questions and the question technique that is basically used over here. So you can see in the requirements clearly written, the requirements are very important after adjusting for the errors. So that means these are the three errors. We need to adjust them, we need to correct them in the suspense account, and then after that we need to tell the final closing balance of the suspense if there is any. Okay. So first of all,
Mhm.
a trial balance, you can see that it shows a debits of 347 800 and credits of 362 350. So first of all, we need to find the difference between them, because clearly you can see there is a difference, and if there is a difference, that means clearly there is a need of a suspense account. Okay. So 362 350 minus 347 800, so this is 14,550. This is the difference, 14,550. And this difference will come on which side? Debit side. Why debit side? Because this side is less, right? So on the difference side,
Mhm.
on the side which is understated, that side basically has the suspense account, because this is right. This increased side, this is right. Only the difference side, the understated side, on that side we made the suspense account balance. Now let's start this
Okay.
question. So 245. So over here, I'm making suspense account, and 14,550 will be written on debit side. This is basically the opening balance. Okay. Now let's see what are the errors over here. So first of all, a credit sale for 3670 was incorrectly entered in the sales daybook as 3760. Right. So what happened is that a credit sale of 3670 was incorrectly entered in the sales daybook as 3760. Right. So in the sales daybook, what happened is that this was a credit sale basically, right? So in credit sale, what happens is we are not receiving the money right now, right? And probably I think over here that what happened is that the receivables were written correctly, because debit receivable is there, right? So debit receivable was 3670, and credit sales, they were actually done as 3760, right? So you can see there is a difference between them, and I think the difference between them is $90. Let me check again.
Yeah.
3670 minus 3760. Yeah, that's $90 different, right? So that means that on the where is actually the mistake? The receivable side is absolutely correct, but the mistake is on the credit side, which is the sales, right? So that means we need to reduce the sales over here, right? So what we do is that for reducing sale, we do debit sales by how much? 90, because this is the increased amount. We need to bring it down. We need to bring it to 3670. This is actually 3760, right? So that means we reduce the sales by 90, right? And because there is nothing on the credit side, there is nothing on the credit side. So what we do is credit suspense by 90. Why I did this credit suspense? Because this is the motive of this chapter, to explain that when there is nothing on the other side, because receivables is correct, right? So why would we reduce the
Yeah.
receivables? If we reduce the
Mhm.
receivables on credit, then the difference would double over here. The difference would be of 180. It would increase even more, right? So we would credit
Yeah.
suspense, because debit is absolutely correct over here. So after correcting the mistake, what happens is that we take $90 to the credit of suspense account. Okay, just give me a second, 1 second. Okay, actually I was trying to confirm one thing, and hopefully I just confirmed it. Let me explain you again. So over here it's very unclear, you can see. Let me explain you over here again. Look, so what I was trying to confirm over here is that you can see it's just written a credit sale of 3760 was incorrectly entered in the sales daybook as 3760. So what I was trying to confirm from the answer over here is that have we just written the sale amount wrong or both amounts wrong? And I just got to know that we have written both amounts over here wrong, because credit sale contains a whole package, right? And that package is receivables as well and sales as well. So that means both amounts are written wrong over here. So let me erase this over here. Let's do a quick correction over here.
Oh,
So
they were 3760.
yeah, exactly. Both amounts were written with debit receivable with 3760 and credit sales with 3760. But actually the correct amount was 3670. I was a little bit confused over here because it's written credit sale. So I thought it's just a sale amount which is wrong. But actually both amounts are wrong over here. So you can see that amounts are wrong, but debits and credits are equal. So the trial balance will not show any mistake over here. It will just show that it's equal, right? Mistakes are equal over here. So that means this will not require any entry in the suspense account. Okay, so fortunately, I just got it clear from the answer just right now. So we did not do the wrong mistake over here. So both sides are equal. That means this will not require any kind of entry in the suspense account. Okay, so first I am doing a cross over here because it does not require. Now let's look at the second one. A non-current asset with a carrying amount of 7890 was disposed of for 9,000. So you may remember that we compared two things when we were doing the non-current asset disposal, right? So the only accounting entry was to debit cash, right? So what happened is that probably over here by reading this line, it may seem that it's talking about recording the proceeds, right? Because for proceed, what entry we do? Debit cash and credit disposal, right?
Okay.
Exactly. Credit disposal. But debit cash is done by how much? 9,000. This 7890 is just given for confusion over here, so that the student is more confused and he starts wasting more time and calculate the profit over here, which is I think 1110, I think something like this. But the profit is not required over here, because from reading this line, the only accounting entry was to debit cash. It's clear that it's talking about the double entry for disposal, right, for the proceeds. So it has not done credit disposal. So what we'll do is that for correcting this, we'll do credit disposal, right, by 9,000. And debit, what we'll do? Debit will do suspense. Because you can see that there is no point in debiting the cash, because if we do debit cash again by 9,000, the difference will increase by 18,000, right? Not just by 9,000. So cash is absolutely correct over here. Only mistake is in disposal side. So we'll make the correct entry, credit disposal, and then we'll do debit suspense over here, which is 9,000. So this way we have corrected the entry. This is the requirement after adjusting for the errors. So first did not require, second, yes, it's requiring. So what we'll do is debit suspense by 9,000. 9,000, this is error 2. Okay, right? So this is basically the common sense I
Shouldn't
was
be
talking.
on the
Yeah. Yes, you can ask. Please ask again.
on the credit side.
Which amount?
The 9,000 shouldn't be on the credit side because we already debit the cash.
Look, what happened actually is we have to see that what we missed over here. Okay, debit cash we do correctly. It's written over here. Only accounting entry was to debit cash. What's actually not credited on the other side? Disposal. We did not credit the proceeds in the disposal, right? So for correcting this, cash is right. We have to ignore that. What is right over here, we simply have to ignore, because we have to focus on the mistake over here, right? So credit we do disposal because that's what we did wrong over here. So what we do is credit disposal by 9,000, and because there is nothing on debit, there is no sense of doing debit cash again. So we'll do debit suspense. We just put this remaining entry just in suspense, so that after we have get sufficient evidence, we just finish this suspense. But right now there is nothing showing us that we have got the sufficient evidence. Okay, so debit suspense by 9,000. This will be the right entry. Again, focus on the mistake over here. What we have done right, we just have to ignore that. Okay, this is the basic rule of this whole chapter. Now, third one, the allowance for receivables, again, we have studied this chapter, was increased from 8,900 to 10,200. Now you remember an increase was expense, right? So the allowance account was debited in error. Do you remember what was actually the entry for increase? It was credit allowance, because I told you allowance is treated like a liability, right? And debit
Yeah.
expense, exactly. That's right. Right? Now the allowance account was debited in error. So what actually happened is that the allowance account was decreased instead of increased, right? So this also tells me, look, basically I'm picking up the signs, the indications from the examiner, because in this question the examiner has given indications. Now it's the human mind's
Mhm.
task to basically pick up that signs, right? So what happened is that where is the error? Where is the error existing? On the allowance side. The expense side will be absolutely correct. So in actual, technically what had happened is we have done this entry. Look at the side, debit expense, debit allowance. But in actual, we needed to credit allowance, right? Now, what actually we'll do for
Yeah.
correcting this, I'm writing the correcting entry over here, right? For correcting this, that 2 times entry, remember? So credit
Yeah.
allowance will do by which amount? By the double amount, right? Now let's see what is the increase. First of all, let's find the increase. Minus 10,200, 1,300. This is the increase. 1,300, right? This is the increase. So that means we will not credit allowance by 1,300, because if we did, the basically the net effect will be zero. The correct entry will not be made, right?
Yeah. So we
So
need
we'll
to do
credit,
times two.
exactly, it will be 2,600 credit allowance, right?
And
And there
debit
is,
the expense account.
exactly, debit the suspense account, because if we debit the expense, there is no basically nothing makes sense over here, because debit expense is already done, right? So debit will do suspense by
Okay,
2,600.
so basically on the suspense account don't go the mistakes, but basically what goes is the correct amount that we have originally recorded. But
Basically, there is a golden rule over
mistakes,
here. You have to remember one rule, that look, what happens is that debit expense we did absolutely correct, which was debit expense by 1,300.
yeah, yeah.
But it's saying over here, we have to read it clearly, the allowance was debited in error instead of credited. Now imagine it was written over here that allowance account was not credited, the allowance account was omitted, it was ignored. In that case, we would just credit allowance just by 1,300, because the entry is zero over there currently, right? So in this case, what we'll do, because it has debited in error, we have to correct it, we have to bring it back to credit, right? So in that case, we have to do 2,600 credit. So always remember, there is a golden rule in this. Just focus on the mistake that we have did, and everything will automatically make sense over here. There is no need to follow any steps or step 1, 2, 3 that we have studied in the study text, right?
Okay.
So what we'll do is that debit suspense by 2,600. This is the error 3, right? Now let's find, just we have to balance this account and find the closing balance. 14,550 plus 9,000 plus 2,600. So 26,150 and 26,150. So over here, the closing balance will also be 26,150. Okay. So I think A option is correct. Yes, it's correct over here. Okay. So A option is correct. 26,150. Now in the solution, if you look, it's a very difficult approach, that what actually should have done, what we have done, what was the correcting entry, right? It's very confusing to understand. So just focus on one simple word. I've just told you one phrase, that focus on the mistake over here. What mistake we have done, right? And mistakes sometimes can be very tricky. We have to carefully read the requirement of the question. Okay, right? Now let's
Okay.
do 246. Next question over here.
Yeah.
Let's see. So which two of the following errors could explain this, assuming that Kelvin maintains control accounts for its receivables and payables with the double entry system? So this question basically has some element of that control account as well. Let's see. The trial balance of Kelvin does not balance. Okay, so again, let's read. Which two of the following errors could explain this? We have to select only two. Um, okay, right. So we have to just tell that out of these four errors, which two of them actually caused to make a suspense account, to make, to basically cause an imbalance in the in the trial balance, because there is an imbalance, right? You can see this
Mm-hmm.
statement. Okay. Now The sales, this is a very interesting question. This will teach us many new things which are not there in the study text as well. So the sales day book was undercast by $100, right? Always remember, we have just corrected this mistake in the first question as well, in the first requirement, number 1, you can see. So always remember, if sales day book is undercast, now looking at this requirement at the control accounts aspect, we can clearly see that when we were studying control account, I clearly instructed you that sales day book is directly connected with which account? Receivables control account, right? And purchase day book is connected with payables control account, but that's a separate topic, right? What happens here is that always remember, if there is any kind of error or a mistake in day book, always remember this will never affect the suspense account. Let me write over here as well. Never affect suspense. Now let me give you a logical explanation for this. Look, actually, what was done is that only sales day book was undercast by $100. If sales day book, if sales is undercast, that means this will go into the receivables account as well, right? Receivables control account. So if sales is undercast, receivable will be undercast as well automatically. This means, right? So if receivable is undercast, for correcting this, what we'll do is we'll do simply debit receivable, credit sales. So was there any entry for suspense over here? There was no, right? No entry for suspense. That means any kind of error in the day book, either it's sales day book, either it's purchase day book, it will never ever affect the trial balance. Okay, because it has, what is the logical explanation for this? Because it has direct relation with the control account. So anything which hits the control account is corrected by receivable, payable, or sales or purchase. There is no suspense entry involved over here. Okay, right? So this is very much connected with the control account, but that was separate. This is separate. Now let's see second one. Discount received were credited to the sale revenue account. Now, if you think, discount received are actually also credited in their own account, because it's income, right? Discount allowed is expense, discount received is income. So even if it is written in the wrong, you can see clearly it's an error of commission, because it means that nature is same.
Sorry, discount received is now in the payables and discounts allowed in the receivables.
No, look, think it like this. What is the nature of this? Because we have studied the trial balance in nature and the wrong account, all that, right? So think about the nature, that what is the nature? Discount received is treated as a group 2 item, right? Because it's income, right? Yes, it goes in the payable. That's right. It decreases the payable. But what actually happens is that discount received itself, what is it? It's income, right? So if it is an income, and sales is also treated like income because it's a group 2 item as well, right? So that means that this entry is also correct, because trial balance will be blind over here. It will not know what's happening, right? So that means discount received are also actually credited in their own account. If they are entered in the revenue account as credit, there is no problem. There is no issue, right? If imagine it was written over here, discount received debited, yes, then that was create a issue. That will create a issue. Okay, so that means this entry will also not require any suspense account, because the entries are correct.
Sorry, when there is a discount received,
Yeah.
how is it? I mean, I don't remember the double entry.
Yeah, let me tell you the double entry once again. Discount receive was connected with payables, right? Purchase. So what we do is that I told you settlement discount entry is made whenever cash is paid. So we do credit cash, then we do debit payable. This was a normal entry. We finish the payable, we credit the cash, and in between we do credit discount received. This was the entry. So you can see discount received is an income, right? Think it like an income or expense. Discount allowed was an expense. Discount received is income, because we received some kind of relief, right? We were to purchase something for 1000. Now we are purchasing it for 900, right? So this is the income. That's why it's credited. So it doesn't matter. We credit the liability account. It doesn't matter. As long as it's credited, that's all right. Okay. That's the thing that matters in this topic. Right? Getting it? Are you coping up? Are you following?
Yeah, it's just, that this, the sales revenue account is not the discount received account.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. That's right. But
it's 50 cents.
but think it like we just studied the error of commission, right? In error of commission, the account names were wrong. Yes, the account names were wrong, but nature was same. So you can see nature is same. This is also group 2 item. Sales discount received income is also group 2 item. Both are credited, right?
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if the account name is wrong as well. Error of commission was which one? It belonged to the category in which trial balance still balances. There is no difference in between debit and credit. Okay, so if the first two are wrong, obviously this means we have to select the correct two ones, right? Obviously this means 3 and 4
Yeah.
will be right. Let me explain you one of them, that why this is correct. An opening accrual, we have studied the accrual and prepayment, so that means it's basically telling about opening liability, because accrual is a liability, we have studied, right? An opening accrual was omitted from the rent account. We have just studied the detail of this. If opening balance of any account, either it's liability, expense, purchase, sales, anything, if it is not available, obviously the closing balance will be wrong as well. And if closing balance is wrong, the extraction error will occur over here. During the extraction, the amount will be wrong. Okay, so the option 3 and 4 will definitely be wrong over here. Okay, that means actually these are right, but these are causing the mistakes over here, causing the trial balance to not balance over here. Okay,
Okay.
so the correct option will be option C, 3 and 4. Let's see. Yes, this is correct. C option is correct. Okay, the detail you can
The
also,
last one, sorry. Is it
uh,
sales
I'm sorry.
account? Was under cut. No, I'm looking at the fourth option.
Sure. Let me explain. So the
It
debit
is
side of the cash account was undercast, right? Let's say this is the cash account, right? Now I am writing the totals. This side total is, let's say, 800. This side total is 1000. So it's the same meaning. Debit side of cash account was undercast, right? So debit side
It's
was
the same
800.
thing with the sales daybook.
No. This is a bit separate from that, because if cash account debit side is less, credit side is more, it actually means that debit is less, credit is more, right? And debit credits are obviously not matching over here, right? They should match over here, right? Debits and credits, it should
Yeah.
be equal. Either if it is an individuality account, either if it's a total account, either it's if it's a total trial balance, right?
Or do you mean the sales daybook? There is no difference because the sales daybook derives from the revenue and the cash. So
Yeah,
there is no difference when we go.
exactly. So I told you
It's
that
a
sales
result
daybook.
of two transactions
Yeah.
and they are equal, then they will go to the sales day book and you won't show any difference because they are equal in the entries, in the
Yes,
double entry.
exactly. Look, the logical explanation for this will be that first of all, there are two features over here. First of all, if you need to make it easy, just remember that any kind of daybook phrase like this, if any kind of statement like this comes in the exam or in the question, you need to straight away cancel it out, because it will not ever, never
Okay.
ever, it will require a suspense account.
Okay.
Now, if you want to study it in detail, if you want to understand it in detail, you can simply remember that look, if sales daybook is wrong, the daybook balances automatically go into which account? Control account, because we have studied this chapter before, right? Sales daybook balances go into the receivables control account, and purchase daybook balances go into the payables control account, right? So if sales daybook balance is undercast by 100, let's say it was 1000, but 900 is written over there, right? So this 900, this 100 amount decrease will also have been hit which account? Receivables control account. So that means receivables will also be undercast by 100, and sales will also be undercast by 100. So for increasing
Okay.
them, simply what you have to do is this entry, which I made over here. Increase the receivables by 100. Basically, just make a new sales of 100, new credit sale, to just correct that. So there is no suspense entry over here, right? On debit
Okay.
side, credit side, there is no suspense. So this is the logical explanation of this.
Okay.
Okay, it just acts as we have made a new sale over here.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Depends if it is overcast, undercast, same thing happens. If this was overcast, then simply we would credit the receivables and debit sales. We would reduce
Okay.
both amounts. Okay,
Okay, got it.
right? Okay, so we'll just do two more questions because I am a bit short of time. We'll try to do the remaining questions. I'll try to keep the Friday's class a bit long, right? And in that class, we'll try to manage the remaining questions. Okay, so that
Mm-mm.
you're more
The,
clear about this chapter.
the Friday class, can we do it like, if we can start a little bit earlier, maybe, or you can't do that because
Sure,
you
sure,
have
yeah.
to.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're fine with that, if we can start early, it's perfectly fine. I'm available.
Yeah, also like 4 o'clock.
Um, 4 o'clock is basically my 9 p.m., right?
Yeah,
I'll confirm you just one day before, whatever the
or
time is, because
5, as you want. Yeah.
what happens is that on 8 p.m. Pakistan time, I come back from work, and it's like 30-35 minutes drive, right?
Okay.
And basically I have all the dinner, etc. So it
Mm.
becomes like minimum I can manage at 10, which is basically
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah. Then it's fine.
your
Yeah, it
5,
should be fine.
right? So 5 is
Yeah.
fine for you.
What's your job?
Actually, I'm working in a UK based company, and that basically manages the accounting, and it's basically related to the ACCA, and it counts as an experience as well. So it's basically an accounting outsourcing firm, which is operating in Pakistan as well. And basically, all the operations are managed by a company. It's a UK based company overall.
Good.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
Yep. Okay, let's do the next one,
Okay.
247. So, what type of an error may explain this? Let's see this one. The trial balance of MHSP does not balance at the year end. So again, I'm trying to pick the signs over here, right? So if the trial balance is not balancing over here, so which type of error may explain this? So I need to carefully pick that error which results in a trial balance not being equal, right? I will just ignore those ones which actually make the trial balance equal, right? Now, error of commission and error of principal, I'm ignoring them straight away because we have just studied that they are part of that in which the trial balance still balances, right? That's right. And I think the compensating error was also part of this. In all
Yeah.
three of these, the trial balance still balances, right? In all three of these. And the only remaining one is this one, option A, extraction error. Because in extraction error, this we just read that when the trial balance are not equal, the debit and credit side are not equal, this is the reason for that, the extraction error, right? During the extraction, we do some mistake over this side.
Okay.
Okay, so 247, let's see. Yes, option A is correct, right? Now let's do this one, 248. This is the last one. Just a second. Okay. Which of the following explains the difference in full? Let's see. So the trial balance of Butler companies show total debts of, this is basically total debits. Let me correct it. It may be a spelling mistake. So 125,819 and total credits of 118,251. Okay, so you can clearly see that on credit side there is much less balance, and suspense account will also be opened on which side? Credit side. Now let's see what is the
Yeah.
difference first of all. 125,819 minus 118,251. This is 7568. This is the difference. Okay. Now carriage inwards of 3784 has been shown on the wrong side of the trial balance, right? So let's see, again in this kind of question we have to do again a trial and error based method, right? We have to apply each and every option to the suspense account. Okay. Now the
Mm.
easier option for this is to basically make a suspense account over here. Okay, and write 7568 on the credit side. 7568. Okay, and whatever clears this up fully, the balance is zero. That means that that's the correct answer because it's showing over here which of the following explains difference in full, right? Now, carriage inwards of 3784 has been shown on the wrong side of trial balance. Yes. Now, again, we need to pick some common sense over here, right? Carriage inwards, this is basically a new word for just like transportation costs. In easy terms, you can call it transportation cost or delivery costs. So delivery cost is basically expense, right? So if it is an expense, let's say this is a trial balance, right? And this carriage inwards, right? And this is expense, this should be written on the debit side, but it's actually written on the credit side, right? So for correcting this, what we'll do is, now for correcting this, we actually do debit carriage inwards by 2 times, not with 1 time. Why with not 1 time? Because if you do just 1 time, the net effect will be just 0, right? It will actually not be corrected. And let's see what is the 2 times of this. This is 7568. Yeah, 7568. So this may be explain the difference. Now on the credit side, we don't have anything else, right? So what we'll do is credit suspense, because we are unsure what to do. Let's see. We'll enter this on credit side. No, if we enter this on credit side, the difference will increase, right? Difference will increase over here. Just a second. Just give me a second. Okay. Now let's look at option B. A is wrong. So discount received of 3784 have been credited to payable ledger control account, right? So in payable control account, you see discount received always reduces them, right? And for reducing payables, what we do? Debit payable. We write them on the debit side, right? So again, the same mistake. So probably what we'll do is that we'll just do debit payables by how much? 7568. This will be the same entry by 2 times, right? By 2 times we'll debit it and credit this suspense by 2 times as well. So that means it will result as the same option as option A. That's wrong as well. Okay. Now option C, sales daybook has been undercast. As soon as I read this word, I'm clear in my mind there is a spark that it does not contain a suspense account entry, because we have studied this just a while ago, right? Because if sales daybook has been undercast by 7568, no problem. What we'll do is debit receivables, credit sales. So was there any entry for suspense? No, right? Not an entry. Now D probably looks right, because that's the only option left. So an opening accrual of 7568 has been omitted from rental expense. Yes, if any kind of opening balance is omitted, forgotten from any kind of T account, then obviously yes, this will cause a problem and will result in the closing balance being wrong as well.
So we go on the debit side of the suspense account.
Yes, exactly. What we'll do is that if opening accrual is missing, opening accrual normally comes on the credit side of its own T account, right? So what we'll do is credit accrual by 7568, and because we have nothing on debit, we'll do debit suspense 7568. Okay, so if we do 7568 debit, yes, this is correct, because this will cancel out this one.
Sorry, so basically what wasn't recorded was the credit accrual side.
Exactly, the opening balance of the accrual account, which basically comes on the credit side. Okay, so if credit side is not there, we'll fulfill that. We'll do credit accrual 7568, and on debit side we don't have anything. We'll just enter it temporarily on the suspense account, and this will basically correct that error, right? This will affect in the error becoming 0, right? So option D is the correct option over here, right? Got it? So I hope you're clear, much clear about this chapter, and